Hi there, my name is Shannon Williams, and I'm with Tracy Hammerstrom, licensed acupuncturist and functional wellness provider at Isthmus Wellness. I'm excited to actually get and sit and talk with you. I feel like we have all these meetings about things, but to really just to get to know you better and live inside your brain a little bit, because I think there's a lot going on in there that a lot of us don't realize.
Maybe so.
So I'd like to know a little bit more about that. So something that I found really intriguing was Tracy got her an extra training this year on stool testing as it relates to skin issues. And I'd really like to hear about that, because I personally struggled with acne for all of my 20s. I tried to be vegan. I tried to give up gluten. I tried to give up dairy, and it was persistent. And until I made some big changes that were actually nutritional, it wasn't a magical serum. It wasn't, it didn't come through in like a lot of what's marketed to us. And I think that that's what Tracy has been finding and kind of found with this program. So can you tell me a little bit about, first of all, why you kind of chose skin and gut testing, and then a little bit more about the program itself?
Sure. So, yeah, I got into the skin and the gut testing from, like you, personal experience.
What personal experience?
So, years ago, my partner and I decided to leave our jobs in Chicago and go traveling through Asia. Thanks. It was risky and it was scary to leave all that security to, go find another purpose in life. That is how I became an acupuncturist, was just through, discovering different ways of being and different things on that trip. But one of the major takeaways from the trip was that, of course, traveling through, we spent 9 months in India, 4 months in Nepal, Burma, Thailand, and along the way, picked up some gut bugs now and again. We were also, unbeknownst to me, it was before I was in the, natural medicine, is that we were taking antibiotics prophylactically because we didn't want to catch malaria. And so we were taking like amoxicillin or something for like weeks on end, and I didn't know any better at the time. So, I was wrecking my gut flora, and then in the meantime, being exposed to bugs through the water and food and whatever. And so, I had giardia like at least a couple of times. It was treated for that with more antibiotics, and I still had persistent gut issues throughout most of the trip. And so it was, bloating, it was pain, it was discomfort, weird appetite changes. Sometimes I'd have no appetite. Sometimes I'd have an enormous appetite. I'd get randomly full really fast. So just all sorts of, discomfort with that and not really knowing what's going on. And I did some Tibetan medicine there, which was partly what led me to acupuncture. And, saw regular Western doctors over there, and didn't ever quite find the answer. Came back to the United States. I sought out regular GI care. I saw a gastroenterologist in my home area. And, the only thing they were offering me at the time was to do a stool sample, like a stool test. But they insisted that my bowels be runny or something like that. And that wasn't my experience. And so I just felt like, okay, like this is all you can do for me. And so I felt pretty like at a dead end. And then I moved out west to go to acupuncture school. And it was there so I moved to Portland, Oregon. There was a naturopathic school in the same town as my acupuncture school. So
Was that Bastyr?
No, it was NCNM at the time, National College of Naturopathic Medicine. It's now NUNM.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's being bought out by Bastyr. Anyway, just at this point. But so I went to the student clinic there, and I went to the student clinic at my school, and I was getting treated both ways for my gut issues at the time. And so some of the things that they offered me there was to do a stool test, and I did food sensitivity testing with them. And then in the meantime, I was going to the acupuncture clinic and getting acupuncture and herbal therapies and, cooking my own herbs at home and all this. And I think it was all of the therapies that really helped me, but it's that like Western mind and like satisfaction of like knowing exactly what's in my gut, which, made me want to do the gut testing in my practice. So, having the stool test, getting the pages of results of what's going on in here. And the food testing, I didn't find quite as helpful. I mean, because at the time I already felt like there were lots of things I couldn't eat.
Right.
That just told me all these other things that I should avoid. And I felt like I couldn't eat anything. And so that was really challenging, especially at that point where I was already suffering from eating certain foods. But ultimately, I found that I had candida at the time and several parasites. And so we treated those with herbs. And, I still did the Chinese medicine herbs. I still did the acupuncture, but they gave me some supplements that were strong herbs. And eventually I got rid of the candida, and that accounted for most of my symptoms. And so I felt incredibly better. But then years later, after I was an acupuncturist, I felt like there was probably still something off. And so I pulled another stool test on myself, a GI map, and I still had the parasites that were there. So they weren't causing like overt symptoms there, but I still had eczema. Actually, that was the skin thing that I had started when I was traveling and had the gut issues. That was the first time in my life I'd ever had eczema.
Yep.
And so, to me, the timing did seem like, they were tied together. And then, so I researched really hard, like what I should use to try and address the parasites. And of course, the company gives this ton of support. I treated myself for the parasites, and the eczema went away.
Ooh, I know. Look at that. So when I hear this, and this is like, this is kind of how my brain works, like pages and pages of results. So when a patient comes to you and gets all of this information, like, how do you break it down? Like, do you give them a set protocol for an amount of time? Or is it like, here, can you kind of talk about your method on like how you approach that?
Yeah, sure. Well, pages and pages of results. You can expect that not everyone's going to have the same results. So there's a lot of variables. So, I mean, there are certain things that can treat a number of different things that come up on the test. So like we have certain broad spectrum antimicrobial supplements that can treat, almost any of the bacteria that show up, and it can help with H. pylori, and it can help with parasites. So there are certain things that can be a little bit of a catch-all, but each of those is going to have different things that you might use that are going to target a little bit better. Yeah, everyone has a different test, so it's all going to be unique. I mean, some people need more like immune support with their gut, and so there are markers that come up on the test for that. And so maybe we need to give them like more of their natural defenses before we actually kill the bad guys. So yeah, generally we first meet, we talk about dietary and lifestyle things that will be supportive as well. And then I start people on a plan for probably 8 to 10 weeks to start. And then we would meet again at that point, see how you're doing, revise the plan and go from there. And so just continue with that interval until, things are in a good place. Yeah. But certainly like, especially in the beginning, if I've never worked with someone, I don't know how kind of strong their gut is and like how they'll be able to handle certain supplements. So I invite them to, check in with me after, a week or two on that first dose. We might increase the dose slowly. Yeah. To start out, things like that. So yeah, I'm usually in touch with folks, especially when they're first beginning.
And why the GI map? Like why do you choose that as your kind of empirical test? Why not just the stool test from the regular doctor?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, and I mean, I'm not an expert in Western medicine, right? But like, if from what I've heard other patients say, like a lot of times their Western doctor will just pull an H. pylori or just pull, a Giardia test, or just pull, like they're just testing a single organism. The thing that's wonderful about the GI map is that it is testing, you get 4.5 pages of results.
Okay. So is that all parasites or?
No. So it tests for H. pylori, which is the bacterium in the stomach. And then it tests for certainly bacteria that have a tendency to overgrow, that are opportunistic in the body. It tests for your commensal or your good gut bacteria, the ones that we need and want, because they help us to make, they help us to make neurotransmitters, they help us to make hormones, there's the different signaling efforts. And what else? Digestive markers. So it can tell you if you're digesting fats well, if you're digesting like your pancreatic enzymes, some immune markers from the gut. And then, one that we always test at Isthmus is zonulin, which is a marker of leaky gut, which I know a lot of people hear about these days.
Yeah.
So 4.5 pages. The other thing that I like about it is that it's qPCR, so it's quantitative PCR. So PCR is like a really sensitive test, and then the quantitative part means that it's counting like what is actually in the sample, and then it's giving you a hard and fast number. Like, this is what we found. This is how many we found in your sample. So, yeah, it's not guessing about anything.
I like that. I feel like in the world we live in, there's so many people being influenced and telling us what we should or shouldn't take. Do you feel like, do I still get to take the supplements that I've ordered off of TikTok, or do you give us guidance on kind of what we're bringing to the table? Can you kind of explain that more?
Yeah. So, before we have that initial meeting where we go over your test results and make a plan together, you will have filled out your medical intake paperwork. And so that will include, there's a place in there where you'll write in there what you're currently taking, and including doses and things like that. And so I take that into account when I'm making your plan. And I mean, every so often, sure, there's things I just, keep taking that. That sounds good. But if there's something that overlaps with what I'm giving you, or that I think is a better quality, I will make adjustments. Okay. So we go over it together. Also, sometimes what comes up is, a supplement might be available by powder or capsules. And certain people, have a strong propensity to one or the other in terms of being compliant with the plan. So that's something we would go over together and come up with a plan together in that first visit. Okay.
Last question. If you had to kind of choose top 3 skin conditions that you feel respond well to the GI map, like what 3 skin conditions kind of come to you?
I would choose, acne is probably the one I've seen the most frequently, and eczema, and seborrheic dermatitis. Derm, which is like, it can show up like dandruff on the scalp, but it can also be on the face as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
It was fun to sit down with you. There's so much knowledge that I don't even realize that you have sometimes. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.